Question 9.5 is completing the square. Okay, in previous lessons, you solved quadratic equations by finding square roots, by factoring, right? Graphing, yeah. And some of those, sometimes none of those will work. Sometimes none of those will work. So in this lesson, we're going to learn to complete the square. You can solve any quadratic equation by first writing it in the form m squared equals n. Okay, you can model this process by using algebra tiles. Here we have the blue square is an x squared, okay, and then each one of these green ones is an x. So this says x squared plus 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, x. Did you ever see that? Okay. Now, if we rearrange the tiles, okay, if we rearrange the tiles to be in an actual square, okay, we can see that we have the x tiles split in two. The x tiles are split in two. So this b part of the equation is split in two, so we just divided it by 2, right? Now, if I want to complete the space in the square, that's completing the square, right? I can add squares in the rest of the space. And in the rest of the space, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 4 is 16. So we added 16 to this picture to complete the square. Does everybody see that? So in general, you can change the expression x squared plus bx into a perfect square trinomial. That's what our goal is, perfect square trinomial, by adding half of the b squared to the original equation. Okay? And that process is called completing the square. So problem 1 is finding c to complete the square. We want to know what is the value of c such that x squared plus 20x plus c is a perfect square trinomial. Okay? Now, I have a question over here. It says, can c be negative? Whenever I add the c here, according to what we just talked about in the previous slide, can c be negative? What? Because you have to square it. Very good. Very good. So, c is the square of a real number, which means that you can never have a minus c. Okay? You can never do minus c. So, when we complete the square, we want to take the b, divide that by 2, and then square it. Okay? So, b is 20. So that's 20 divided by 2, and we're going to square that. So 20 divided by 2 is 10. Squared is equal to 100. So the perfect square trinomial that we came up with is x squared plus 20x plus 100. And now let's check just to make sure we have a perfect square trinomial. Okay? So we have x squared, that's a perfect square. 100, that's a perfect square. And if I take 2 times a times b, just remember when we check, remember it's the square root of this and the square root of that, right? So a is equal to x and b is equal to 10, right? So 2 times a times b is 2 times a times 10, which is 20. So we do have a perfect square trinomial. Problem 2 is solving x squared plus bx equals c. So we want to know what are the solutions of t squared minus 6t is equal to 247. All right, so the first thing we need to do when we solve this is we want to complete the square. So we've got t squared minus 6t, and then I like to leave a space here, okay, equals 247. Okay, so when I complete the square, again, we're going to take half of our b, so that's, our b is negative 6, right? So we're going to take half of negative 6, and then we're going to square that. So this is going to be negative 3 squared, which is positive 9, right? So we're going to add 9 over here. And just like with all of our balancing our equations, if I add 9 on one side, I have to add 9 on the other side. Okay? So we end up with t squared minus 6t plus 9 is equal to 256. Now, because we have a perfect square trinomial on this side, we can factor it to our two binomials. Okay? So, what can I factor? What can my two binomials be? Well, we've got t squared, right? T squared is going to be t times t. What times what equals 9? 3 times 3 equals 9, right? So we've got 3 times 3. Now, when we add the 3 and the 3, we want to get a negative 6. So that means that both of them have to be negative. Very good. Does everybody see how we just did our x method in our head? Okay? So that is equal to 256. Now, I'm going to write this binomial squared. Okay? Bless you. This is going to be t minus 3 quantity squared is equal to 256. Now, how do I get the t minus 3 by itself? So, I want to take the square root on both sides. All right? So we're going to end up with t minus 3 is equal to the square root of 256. It's positive and negative 16. So now we need to solve it, right? We need to find out what t is. Now here I have a plus, a positive 16, and a negative 16. So when I rewrite these as an equation, a complete equation, I'm going to have t minus 3 is equal to positive 16, right? What's the other one going to say? T minus 3 is equal to negative 16. So how many solutions am I going to have to my equation? Two solutions. So we're going to add 3 on both sides here. And we get t is equal to 19. Add 3 on this side. And t is equal to negative 13. So those are the two solutions that will make that equation a true statement. Problem 3 is solving x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we want to know what are the solutions of x squared plus 9x plus 15 equals 0. Have you seen this before? Yeah. How did we solve them before? We factored using the x method or the AC method, right? Now, is there any number that you can multiply to get 15? Any two factors that you can multiply to get 15 that when you add them that you're going to get a positive 9? No, we've got 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. None of those factors, when you add them, will give you a positive 9. And that's the reason why we're going to complete the square. Is everybody clear? All right. So here you've seen it, but again, just like we just said, none of those factors are going to give us 15. Okay? 9. All right. So here, let's complete the square. So we've got x squared plus 9x, and I'm going to plus 15 is equal to 0. That's our equation. All right, so we're going to subtract 15 on both sides because we want to have a space there for completing our square. So we've got x squared plus 9x, and then we're going to leave a space, is equal to negative 15. Completing the square. There's my b. It's 9. Half of that is 4.5. 4.5 squared is 20.25. So if I add 20.25 to one side, I have to add it to the other side. So we've got x squared plus 9x plus 20.25 is equal to 5.25. All right. So now we want to factor this. Of course, we're going to end up with some kind of decimals, right? Okay. So we want to factor that. We already know what we squared to get 20.25, right? That was 4.5. And then when we add 4.5 plus 4.5, that's going to give us 9, right? So we already know what our second term is going to be in our binomial. So here, this is going to be an x and an x. Okay? We know we're going to have 4.5 here and 4.5 there. Now, to add, when we add them, we want to get a positive 9, so both of these have to be positive. Is everybody clear? So now I've got x plus 4.5 quantity squared is equal to 5.25. Now, how do I get the x plus 4.5 by itself? Square root. Very good. So now we're going to take the square root on both sides, and we end up with x plus 4.5 is equal to the square root of 5.25 is, I'm going to go ahead and round to the nearest 10. I know I tell you not to round in the middle, but we're going to have to on this, right? So this is going to be it's 2.29 in the calculator, so it's going to be 2.3. Okay? So let's go ahead, rather than rounding to the nearest tenth, let's just round to the nearest hundredth. So this is going to be 2.29, okay? And also, it's going to be a positive and a negative, right? So now we can rewrite our equations. So we've got x plus 4.5 is equal to a positive 2.29, and we have x plus 4.5 is equal to a negative 2.29. And now you just solve for x. So again, once you solve for your x values, you can see that you've got two solutions. Is everybody clear? All right. All right. The method of completing the square works when a is equal to 1 in ax squared plus bx plus c. To solve an equation when a, or the coefficient of the first term, when a is not equal to 1, we have to divide each side by a before completing the square. Okay? So problem 4 is completing the square when a is not equal to 1. You're planting a flower garden consisting of 3 square plots surrounded by a 1-foot border. The total area of the garden and the border is 150 feet squared. What is the side length x of each square plot? Now, when we do this, there are 3 steps, okay? What we've kind of been doing in the other one. We just hadn't written our equation ourselves on the other ones. So step 1 is to write an equation that you can use to solve the problem, okay? The second step is then to complete the square, and then step 3 is to solve the equation. So we know that area is equal to length times width, okay? To find our area, we want this whole thing. We want that whole thing. So we've got this 1 foot that's right here. We've got this x, and x, and then we've got another 1 foot over there. Okay? So this whole length here is going to be what? X plus x is 3x plus 1 is 2. Not 2x, just 2, right? So this is going to be 3x plus 2. Is everybody with me? So that's our length, 3x plus 2. Now, our width is what we have here, okay? And for that one, we've got that 1 foot up there. We've got x here, and we've got that 1 foot right there. So that's going to be what? X plus 2. And that's going to be equal to our area, which is what? 150. So now we want to get it closer to being looking like a trinomial. So what am I going to do with those binomials? We're going to FOIL it. We're going to FOIL it, okay? So we've got first, outer, inner, last, okay? So let's see. First, that's 3x times x, that's 6x squared. Outer is 3x times 2, so that's plus 6x. Inner is 2x, so that's plus 2x. And last is 2 times 2 plus 4, and that's going to be equal to 150. Simplifying more, we've got 6x squared plus 8x plus 4 is equal to 150. Okay, so next up here, so this is going to be 3x times x, which is 3x squared. Gosh darn it. So that's going to be a 3x squared. Did I mess up anywhere else? That's going to be 6x, then 2x plus 4. Okay, so we're good now, right? Okay, good. All right, so now we need to have a space so that we can complete the square, right? So I want to get rid of that 4. So we're going to subtract 4 here, and we'll subtract 4 there. So this is going to give me 3x squared plus 8x is equal to 146. Okay? So here, the coefficient in front of the first term, a, has to be equal to 1. So it can't be 3, so now we're going to divide each term by 3. Okay? So, divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. Okay? So this is going to give us now x squared plus, and I'm going to write this as 8/3 x is equal to, oops, all right. So now that we have a is equal to 1, right? Now we can complete the square, okay? So, I'm going to rewrite it and leave us some space. So we have x squared plus 8/3 x, and a little space, is equal to 146/3, 146 thirds. Now, remember, to complete the square, we're going to take the b, 8/3, we're going to divide by 2, right? Which, when I'm dealing with fractions, it means just multiply times 1/2, right? So times 1/2, that's going to give me 4/3. And now that gets squared, okay? So we are going to add 16/9 on this side. If I add 16/9 on this side, I have to add 16/9 on the other side. So, because we squared the 4/3 here to get this 16/9, we already know what our binomial is going to be, okay? Our binomial is going to be x times x there. We know we did 4/3 times 4/3 to get 16/9, right? So this is going to be 4/3 times 4/3. And guess what? When you add them, you get 8/3. So you're going to have plus and plus, right? The only challenging part, which is not even really that challenging, is to add that other side over there. All we need is common denominator, right? So you multiply this times 3 and that times 3. All right. So once we did our common denominators, we have a 438/9 plus 16/9. Okay? So on this side, I'm going to go ahead and write it as the binomial squared, right? So that's going to be x plus 4/3 quantity squared. And then on the other side, so now, to get my x plus 4/3 by itself, we're going to take the square root, okay? So we've got x plus 4/3 on one side, and on the other side we have a plus and a minus. I'm going to go ahead and write it as a decimal now. Okay, so now we wrote it as a plus 7.10 and a minus 7.10. Now we can simplify, solve for x. 1.33 minus 1.33 on this side. Subtract 1.33 on this side and on that side. So our two solutions, x is equal to 7.1 minus 1.33 is 5.77. And then over here, x is equal to a negative 8.43. But we're talking about area. Oh. So which one does not work?
Negative 8.43.
Very good. This cannot be the answer. Alright, we got to put the units on here, which is feet.